checking in and seeing how everybody's doing. Their week is gone and how we all are transitioning through this period of time of COVID-19 and the stay-at-home order. You know, it's interesting as we continue to move through this. It's coming up on a month, and you know, in some areas are opening up slowly, and certain things are happening. But I believe these are really a culmination of the first two, but this one kind of brings us into some realization of how our thinking modality is as we progress through everything that's happened thus far and even afterwards. And I believe the key thing in us now beginning to work through this is our mental capacity. What are we thinking? Are our thoughts negative? Are they positive? What behaviors have been created since we have been in this staying home and dealing with the plague? So what's really going on with I think is I want to point out some areas today to help us kind of put some flesh to how we're feeling. And then what are our thinking thoughts? Are they negative? Are they positive? Have we thought about the behaviors that's been created? I know for some that we're looking at is if you go into a store now, since this stay at home and COVID, they have markers now in the stores where you got to go up one aisle down, and then they have places where it says you can't enter here, almost like being in an airport. But how many of us don't pay attention to those and walk through, and then we have people giving us dirty looks? That's behavior that we're creating now that we didn't think about prior to stay at home and even COVID. So what's the positive and negatives in our thoughts? So one of the things we want to look at is how do we evaluate our negative thoughts? So what things are we identifying with during this time that's creating the negative thought patterns that we might be living through that we never even paid attention to before? Some of those are like a loss of rights and privileges. So those things did affect people, and they have negative thoughts about that. Then some of them, financial hardships based on the COVID because people lost their jobs or were furloughed. And so now the negative thinking starts coming in with, you know, some of the things dealing with the government, dealing with the jobs in the whole. I'm working from home. For some, those were negative thought patterns because some people didn't like working from home, and now they're working from home and it's like, I don't like it here. So these things can create negative thought patterns. Being around family members all the time, you know, that's something for some people. They just don't like it, and it creates negative thought patterns because it was okay where I could come home, didn't have to be around you, I could leave, but now I'm stuck in here with you almost 24/7, and it is not a fun feeling. So those things can create negative thought patterns. And I believe the biggest one too is no privacy, not having any privacy. If you're in a house and it's, you know, a lot of people in there, 7, 8, 10, you know, some families still are that big, or they have roommates, and, you know, you're at school and you have the different people that are there. This creates no privacy, which can begin to creep in and have negative thought patterns, not only about that situation, but even about yourself. And sometimes, you know, negative thoughts that can shape our life daily are things that's happening, like having the cyclical thoughts happening that's creating fear, worry, doubt, inconsistency, insensitivities. So these things are what shaping our daily living that can create negative thought patterns. Generalizing and fault finding and blaming, you know, generalizing, you know what, this is going to be like this all the time, or, you know, having those kind of overgeneralized statements that definitely can lead into negative thoughts and patterns that shape our behavior. The other one we look at is doom and gloom thinking. Doom and gloom thinking is that, you know what, I can't go outside because if I do, I'll get the virus and now I'm just going to die. And so now this is what's shaping my negative thought patterns. Going into a store and not having a mask on and people approaching you, or even people giving you dirty looks. And so now the doom and gloom thinking on them is that you might be somebody that have the virus. So we need to stay away from you. So those kind of things we look at as creating negative thought patterns. And I believe is what we have to identify as we progress through this, because our thinking is going to determine how we're going to respond to certain things and how we're going to actually deal with certain situations that we're dealing with right now. I would also say we got to look at ways to recognize those things that's going on. So we got to look at ways that show our thoughts. Are they negative? Are they positive? How are we dealing with them? So we look at reaction time to handling stress, short fuse all the time. You know, for some of us who have gone through this, and as we progress through it, what's our reaction time to how people are in our circumference how we're responding to them. Are we quick to be irritated with them if they say something? You know, how will we respond? And all of a sudden we're short fused. And that in itself is something that's lending to what? Our ability to handle this situation. Our minds are always in a red alert status, and we're talking negative things. We have this negative voice all the time. Paying attention to those things, because that wasn't before, but now it might be something that we're living through. And negative thoughts that's happening are getting stronger and stronger, and they're creating what? Patterns within our thinking that are cyclical, but also racing thoughts. And so now we're always kind of in this negative thought pattern because we have developed this being in this isolation mode, beating ourselves up, you know, catching ourselves thinking negative thoughts, and also thoughts that we have inside our head that do not reflect who we are as a friend, a partner, a parent, a worker. These things are not who we are, and this changes us. And so that's why we have to be cognizant of what we are thinking, how we're thinking it. You know, is it really affecting me? Is it not affecting me? For some people, this stay at home is okay for them. They're like, you know what, I can deal with it, I'm fine. But for others, it can be a strain because it's starting to change behaviors. You know, I'm paying these things attention to. Are these new thoughts for me? So is this something new that I'm thinking and I never thought it before, but now all of a sudden it's happening? And if it is, what feelings am I exhibiting because of this? Because for some people, if they've never experienced this before, now all of a sudden, here it is, being in this month-long isolation, being in this month-long situation where if I go outside, I'm concerned about being in the environment. You know, is there droplets getting on me? Is these things? So we started thinking those terms, which once again goes back to overgeneralizing. However, this is real. Feeling sorry for ourselves or worrying without even realizing it, because those things can happen. You know, I'm worried about things at this point that I even never thought I would worry about before. This in itself, being in this situation, it's like being in a movie. If you've ever seen the movie Quarantine, it's like being in that where all these things are happening that was out of our control. We didn't ask for it. On top of this, we're having things placed up on us that some of us are not happy with. And then on top of that, learning how to live through it and living through it. But the other part is, how am I identifying what I'm living through if I'm not paying attention to me? And that goes into the mindset. What am I thinking? Am I worrying about things unnecessarily now? You know, having real internal mental battles that's causing irritability, anger, stress. So now my mind is racing all the time. I can only binge watch so much stuff. And then even after that, it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I can't go to sleep because I'm still keyed up about something I might have heard on the news. One of the latest things that's, you know, when we're getting information, you're hearing things now where, you know, some of the meat packing companies are, you know, shutting down because of their workers. So now you're hearing people being upset and angry and concerned about not getting enough food. And so now we got things that's going on that is affecting us. We see not noticing that our peace, what was my state like before I entered into this COVID stay at home? What was my state like? Was I able to obtain peace? Do I understand what peace is for my life? And if I am in peace, what am I doing to stay this way mentally? Because this affects us mentally. And I believe that's where the battleground starts, is in our psyche from the very beginning. How are we handling ourselves mentally? How are we recognizing our feelings? We talked about that in the last one. We looked at stress and anxiety. How am I dealing with my feelings? And then I want to put it back on the very first one we went through, and that is my cabin fever, my isolation. How am I mentally processing this? And how am I understanding my peaceful state that I need to get into when I start to feel certain ways? And do I feel a loss of control? Am I struggling? Am I struggling with my balance? Am I struggling with just being in balance with my life right now? Because everything seems so chaotic. I'm in a situation that I didn't ask to be in, and that in itself is causing me what? Stress and anxiety, because I feel like I'm losing control, and I don't like because the government is doing this and they're not opening up things fast enough. So now they're saying, you know, you can go to a restaurant, but who's going to determine, as we were mentioning this morning, who's going to determine the percentage that they say is supposed to be in there? And if I go in there and somebody sneeze, all of a sudden now I'm having problems. So these things is what's affecting us mentally. And we're going to develop and look at some ways to handle this. Factors that can help with your positive thinking. Number one, look at having a strong determination and never give up. Never give up. Right now, we're in this. But one of the key factors that's going to help us positively think through it is that we got to have strong determination to realize that this is not something I'm just going to roll over and allow it to happen. I am going to continue moving forward. I'm not going to look backwards. I got to move forward. So I'm not going to give up on me or what? On my ability to be safe, my ability to be peaceful, and my ability to do what I know I need to do to progress through this COVID and through the stay at home. I got to have a strong desire to achieve more. This is the part where we have developed creative concepts and ideals as we have been placed in this stay at home. We've developed and achieved things, more things that we thought or couldn't even imagine or think we would do, and became more creative in a lot of situations in our lives, which is a good thing. Having passion and enthusiasm all the time. I want to be passionate about the things that I'm doing, and I want to show enthusiasm and how I'm doing it, because that boosts, that lifts and boosts my self-esteem. Because now I'm looking at the things that I know that I've done creatively, I haven't given up, and I still have the passion to continue to live. And optimism, I believe, is one of the key factors in this, and not being a pessimistic person, working on that part, not being a negative Nancy, but having the optimism in my life to see that this is not going to be always for me, that when this lifts, I'm going to be able to mentally process it and actually develop proper coping and behavioral techniques through this that's going to help me sustain who I am. Look at goals. We talked about this also in our second meeting, and that is having goals, having those things that I have before me that, number one, I can look back, a plan, setting a plan in place. We talked about it in the first one, and that is having prioritized care. That is a plan. That is a goal that I'm going to set for myself. So when I'm out of this stay at home and we're free to go and come, my goals that I have set aside for that is for me to understand the behaviors that was created that are positive, that now I can continue to move on as I do what? Progress in my life. Focus on my vision and have a strong mental fortitude. I believe without a vision, people will perish, which means when you don't have something that you have before you, that you have the goals and you set a vision for living, that helps you to sustain the ability to have positive thinking. Because now I have something before me that I'm looking at and I'm going to achieve, which goes back to determination and never giving up. So I'm not going to give up on myself. I'm not going to give up on my family. I'm not going to give up on my friends. I'm not going to give up on my job. I am going to develop passion even more so to do what I'm doing, because I don't want to what? I don't want to give up and just allow things to happen, because that goes back to having a strong mental fortitude. And the way that you adopt a strong mental fortitude, number one, is have vision for where you want to go during this COVID and even after it. What's my vision? How am I moving forward? What goals have I established to move me forward? And that part helps us not to be in a negative land, not to have that pessimistic thinking, but to have optimism as we move forward. Some examples we look at for positive automatic thought processes is just simple things like my future looks bright, but I also know there's nothing to worry about. I'm not worried about anything. That's positive thinking. I'm proud of myself. I am warm and comfortable. So these things are positive because they're helping me to adapt what? A strong mental fortitude. I'm fine. I know I am. I feel confident that I can do anything I set my mind to, even during this COVID. Anything I set my mind to, I can do it, and I'm going to do it because I'm fine. No matter what happens, I know I will make it. I feel very happy. So I am telling myself these positive affirmations because these are the things that's going to help me what? Deal with those emotions that might come that sometimes can make me feel down. But when I have strong mental fortitude and determination, then I can tell myself I can accomplish anything. And this is super. I'm okay. I feel good. I'm luckier than most people. I am blessed. I can do many, many things. And guess what? I am going to be okay. I am in a great mood. My mood is fabulous. I'm happy with the way I look. I am okay with me. Happiness is not external, it's internal. And that's the part we need to learn how to live in, is how do I live in happiness where it transcends into peace? Knowing that I'm in a great mood, I am okay. Life is exciting. Today, I've accomplished a lot. So today in my life, I can do a lot of things, and I'm going to do a lot of things because I am okay. I'm proud of my accomplishments, and I deserve the best in life. So all these are thought processes that are positive, and that's the part in living through this, that for some, it might be difficult to capture those positive thinking, because before COVID, some of us might have lived in that negative land. But we don't have to stay there, and we can adopt behaviors and mindsets that can help us move through it. How do we generate positive behaviors and emotions? I would say definitely looking at how to break ourselves free and not be entangled in negative thoughts that generate what? Unpleasant emotions. So when my thoughts are negative, it affects my emotions. And if I can speak through on some of those things that I had on the slide before, it'll help me generate positive thoughts that will also lift my emotions where I'm not feeling sad and down. Redirect my attention out of my thoughts in my head and bring my focus, back to my senses. This goes to mindfulness. So I am not paying attention to those negative things. Why? Because the positives I'm paying attention to outweigh the negative. So I'm paying attention to my senses, that I can learn how to de-escalate myself. Redirect my substantial energy of frustration. That means I'm paying attention to why I'm frustrated, and I'm going to turn it into a positive, effective, and unstoppable determination. So what I'm doing is I'm not allowing my emotions that lead into frustration to determine my outcome. I'm changing that based on the way that I think. Identify why each thought are negative. Why are they negative? What's making it negative? Am I okay with it being negative? See, these are the things that we have to do begin to ask ourselves during this time. This can help us get a grasp on why this particular thought needs to be changed. Because if I'm not determining why my thoughts are negative, then that means I'm not paying attention to what to change. So if I have a negative thought, I want to evaluate it. I want to know why it's negative. Why am I thinking that about being in the house around my family? Is it because I don't like being around them, and now that's making me feel negative? And that's real, because some of us don't like it, but I have to evaluate why. Are they too noisy? Do they not respect me? Is it affecting my privacy? So these things we have to evaluate. Or if I'm in the house by myself, the reason why I might be feeling negative or have frustration is because I'm an extroverted person, and I don't like being in the house by myself. Now I'm in here and I don't know what to do, because for the first time in my life, I have to deal with me. And some of us may not like that. So these are the things we have to evaluate on why it is negative, and if it is, take a look at positives that can change that negative. That means I got to evaluate me and look at me. And that sometimes for some people is difficult. Things we can do to think positive. And that is avoid the negative self-talk. So don't talk negative or say I'm an idiot or I'm dumb or I'm stupid or you know what, I'm just a no good person. We have to change that this time, because when we speak negative of ourselves, that means it does what? It doesn't just go out, it will accomplish what we say. And we have to pay attention to what we speak. So these things we want to turn into positives. Humor is very key, because when we use humor is like medicine. Laughter is. It can help open up endorphins, definitely decrease cortisol levels. So we want to look at things that help us get humor and laugh. We want to cultivate our optimism. If I am not an optimistic person, I want to evaluate that and then understand how to cultivate optimism and not pessimism. So I want to look at what are some of the things I can do. Those positive affirmations are ones that you can do to cultivate the optimism in your life and see things from a perspective that they are going to get better. Because the thing is that trouble don't last always. And we have to understand how to progress through situations in our life. Focus on our positive thoughts, not so much our negative, because it's easy for us to live in negativity. It really is. But how many times do we ever deal with the positives in our life? I would say get a list, write them down, and pay attention to how many that you see that are negative and how many you see that's positive, and then evaluate the negatives and the positive. Because are the negatives reality-based? Or are the negatives based on my ability that I've lived in for so long and I can't see anything other than that because nobody's ever taught me how to what? Identify positives in my life. So these things are important during this time. Mental capacity. Look for effective ways to resolve conflict. I think this is a big one for all of us who have never really understood conflict, because conflict in and of itself is not a negative thing. We look at the word as conflict as negative because a lot of people do not like conflictual situations because they deem them as stress. But that's the furthest thing from the truth, because conflict is not what the person makes out of it, it's what I make out of it. So during this time, I need to learn how to evaluate conflict and not look at conflict as a negative, but understand conflict for what it is and not something negative. Because one of the things I do believe, and I teach it in my conflict class, is that conflict can be one of the best things in your life because it stretches you and pushes you towards purpose. But you have to understand the art of negotiating through conflict, and that conflict is with yourself, not with anyone else. Come up with creative solutions and concepts, which a lot of people have. I see them all the time where people have been being very creative now in doing things. You see the musicians on that they have now where they're doing the concerts and stuff and they're piping people in. That's creative. Being in your house, doing new things, because these things open us up to positive thinking. So we want to look at that. Create concepts for change, maintain your vision, as I talked earlier, and have a plan for a balance in your life. Set a plan up, write it down, live in that plan, because this also will help decrease negative thinking and decrease pessimism. I want to have a plan because one of the factors that I believe in is true, that when we don't have a plan, we have a plan to fail. So when I don't have a vision and put something before me that I'm reaching for, a goal, then that means my plans that I'm seeing and trying to get to, it's going to be difficult because I don't have them written down and I'm not really understanding how to stay on them. And that's why we need to write the plan and make it plain. We need to see what it is because that helps us to what? Have a vision and have a focus. So as I've gone through this and talked about it, I'm going to leave my resources up as I always do. Just want to let people know as we open this up for discussion and talk about it, our thought processes can change, and they need to change. Because one of the things I do know as we are transgressing through this time, and as the different cities and towns are opening back up, we have created behavior during this COVID-19 that it's not going to stop once this is open up. And we have to be cognizant of the behaviors that we have changed. One of the ways that people have changed is definitely going to the stores. Definitely now wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, or seeing people call for sneeze and having that hesitation and those kind of things. You know, there are some stores now, I believe, that you got to have a mask to go in, you know, and these are new behaviors and we don't know how long this is going to last. I believe even after this, they finally open it up, people are still going to wear masks. People are still going to practice social distancing. I don't believe once it's open up that some people are not going to go back to handshaking or even hugging. And that's sad because once again, we are what? We are initiating and developing new behaviors of change that we have to pay attention to. So it's all in our mindset. It's how we think about it, but it's how we react to what we're going through and how we deal with other people. So I want to open it up for conversation now. Masha, if you're there as a mediator, you can open this up and we can talk about it. I'll leave the resources up, and remember too, I always give the plug for our SAP program. So if you're out there and you need assistance, remember our SAP, Joanna or Jackie, we'll put the number in. If anybody needs to call, I'll put it in the chat box, but that's a resource that you have. If you're feeling a certain way and you just can't get a grasp or concept and it's affecting your emotions, your thinking and your behavior, and now you're having difficulties even doing work or even social or even relational, these are the things that you identify and evaluate that says, yes, I need to call somebody, because we're all in this together and we don't want to what? We don't want to lose anybody through this. We want to help each other through this. So Mashi, if you're there, let's open it up for discussion or any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. That was excellent.
Thank you.
I see a comment from Melissa. She says she would love to hear more about approaching conflict as a positive.
Okay, sure. You know, I look at it like this, and Melissa, can you come on? Can you unmute?
Yeah, let's see. Eileen, can we unmute Melissa?
Yes, sir.
Hey, hi, Melissa. How are you?
Good. How are you? I really
Good.
enjoyed this.
Thank you. So let me ask you a question. If you and I are arguing and you stop arguing with me, who am I arguing with?
Say that one more time.
So if you and I are in an argument because we have conflict and you stop arguing with me, who am I arguing with?
You are arguing with yourself.
Exactly. But guess what I'm going to do? And this is innate. I'm going to blame you. And the first thing I'm going to say, if you didn't say this, I wouldn't say that. If you didn't do this, I wouldn't do that. And I'm not realizing that the conflict is not with you. The conflict is with me. And what we don't understand about conflict is that the positive part of conflict, that it stretches us, and if we pay attention, it allows us to see how to navigate through our own issues when it comes to conflict, because we have a negative connotation on words, such as conflict, such as difficult. And we don't realize that those words don't mean what we think they mean because we've been programmed to look at them in a negative way. And when we have situations with people, it doesn't mean what we're feeling is true about them. That's our issue that we have to deal with. And most times people don't really understand conflict because they externalize it and they don't internalize it and look at themselves and say, hold on for a minute. That's not them, that's me. And let me evaluate me, because I want to grow where I'm not allowing conflict in my life to cause me to feel as though I can't address things with people. And that's the part when I talk about conflict and teach it in an academic way, that I don't address it externally. I want people to understand their own conflict and how they need to stretch, which is a positive. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. And I've been doing a lot of inside out work.
Okay.
But I find, like, when I work with a certain team member, and I know it's me, like what you're saying about externalizing conflict, but certain people I work with, I tend to externalize the conflict.
Sure. And let me tell you another reason why. So let me
it. I need to
go ahead.
I need to figure out why when I communicate with them, why I always feel like I'm in conflict with them. And I know what you said is it's internal. So I was just curious.
I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. So let me ask you this question. Is there such thing as a difficult person to you?
Yes.
Okay, once again, you use the word as difficult as negative. And let me say this to you. There is no such thing as a difficult person. Because the person isn't difficult.
No such thing as a difficult person?
No, because the person isn't difficult. The person is human. The situation is difficult.
Oh.
And what we do is when we deem that person as difficult, we automatically put up a wall of resistance and we start dealing with them from external ways. And now we build up conflict because we deem them as difficult, but we don't understand it's not the person, because when we deem the person as difficult, that's when we take it personal. It's not the person, it's the situation. And I have to change my mindset on how I view this person, because if I view them as difficult, I'm going to deal with them from a lens of difficulty, and it's not the person, it's the situation that's difficult. And that's another part that takes mindset training to remove the word difficult and conflict and understand that it's not the person, it's a situation, because the person is human and I can't control them. That's their character. I can only control mine. So if I change the way I view them and look at them, it will help me change the way my mindset perceives the situation that I'm dealing with them. That's a whole nother class.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Melissa, for that. I too struggle. I too struggle with that. Difficult situations, often I tend to think of difficult people, and forgetting that I too can be difficult.
Yes.
I too can be one of those difficult people.
See, that's a class where I do a lot of role playing, so I definitely would like to do that one with you guys. That's a good class.
So great point.
The reason I was laughing is I feel like I have a kindred spirit. So I don't want you to think I was laughing at you. I was like, yay.
No, you do have a kindred spirit. Eileen is laughing because she knows I just go off on tangents.
That's funny.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy, though, for that reminder, because you're so right. It's not that people are difficult,
right,
or even that I'm being difficult. It's
right,
that
right.
relations are difficult, and our responses to
yes,
those situations
yes,
create often the conflict.
Uh-huh.
So thank you for that reminder.
You're welcome.
Are there other questions? I'm scrolling through the chat, and I don't see any. So as we wait for a question or two, really, I just want to say, Tracy, thank you.
Thank you, Marsha.
Mike comes in and he's laughing at me. Because he knows, I think he knows sometimes I am a difficult person.
Marsha, somebody did mention earlier.
Just difficult situations.
Marsha, somebody mentioned earlier.
Y'all. But this
Marsha.
is all really just such good information and really good reminders. I think I typed in the chat that I'm a firm believer in positive affirmations.
Yes.
Years ago, I used to do kind of vision boards with positive affirmations.
Yes.
I'd gotten away from it, and then for a while I was journaling, and I'd gotten away from that. But I tell you, COVID-19 is bringing me back.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So a lot of those things that I used to do that really helped me anyway. So,
right.
I'm no expert, but I would, recommend to you all if you have those things that just help you in some way.
Yes.
See if revisiting that, whether it's journaling or, some people like to walk or meditate, or for me, it's literally now it's Post-its, just putting a Post-it up in my bathroom in the morning, a positive something, saying that morning and evening prayer kind of calms me and helps me to focus on, for me, what's really important. So
that's good.
That's just me sharing what has been helping me, and then just having a good support system.
Right.
I don't have really family here in Tallahassee, so my AFC family, work co-workers are my family.
Right.
So when I start going off the deep end and I'm like, oh my God, what if I get COVID and I, get sick and I'll be here by myself, Eileen and Charlie, they send me messages and they're like, you're not by yourself. And, we will come to you. We will be here. So just having people to give me that little reminder that, I will be okay. I'm not alone has been very helpful for me. So
that's good.
Those are the things that I found that have been working for me. And I just say, find those things and find those people, particularly if you're single. I'm single. I don't have kids. And so I'm having to find other ways and other outlets to help me stay the course.
Right. To encourage yourself. I think Elaine had something she was saying.
Yeah. Eileen?
Oh, I just mentioned that earlier in the chat, somebody was talking about how do you deal with all the conflicting information that's coming at you? Like nothing makes sense. How can you keep your thoughts positive when all the stuff you're getting just doesn't make any sense?
Right. That's one of the ones where I talked about in the first, the cabin fever, is making sure you are getting valid and reliable information and not pulling from all these different sources, because when you start listening and pulling from all these different sources, that's when you start with that behavior where it becomes overwhelming and overloaded. So you have to limit the time that you have listening to TV and getting information. And I tell people to stick to one source. If you have your local news, stick to that. Don't try to listen and pull stuff from all over or reading all kind of stuff always on the internet. You got these news alerts and they're kicking out stuff and they're saying this and they're saying that, which for anybody, when you get too much information, it can be overwhelming. So you yourself have to determine how to set that aside and only pull from a couple sources, and then make sure that the sources that you're getting from is reliable and make sure that it's accurate. Because right now there's things being said that, you know, we're going to run out of meat, you know, because all of the packing companies are shutting down and nobody's going to have meat. And so, you know, I've had some people already from some of my clients that I'm seeing are really scared about that. And I have to reassure them that that's not what's happening. You know, you had a meat company, you know, that a chicken company that went down, but we have, of course, surpluses that's there that the United States have when it comes to these kind of things. So you just got to make sure that you're not getting overwhelmed by listening to all the information that's out there. Make sure it's accurate. Don't pull from all these different sources, and limit your time listening and reading all the stuff that's out there. Because it can be overwhelming, and it is overwhelming, and it is a lot because, you know, you look at them different news agencies on all of them that's posted, from CNN to Fox News to all of these, and all of them are speaking something different. So you got all of that, and now it can be overwhelming. So whoever asks that question, limit your time of getting information, make sure it's accurate. Don't go on listening to all of this and pulling from stuff, and make sure that if you are in your area, just catch the news and turn it off. Don't have it on all day. Give yourself a break from it, okay? Don't allow it to keep repeating, because then you will be overwhelmed.
Yeah, Rick is saying, how do you know who to trust? Your one source could be the wrong one.
Right. That's why I said earlier, and I would say this, if you're looking to get the right information on this whole thing, especially on COVID-19, if you see the resources there, I would say pull up the CDC or go to the World Health Organization. So if you're trying to get information on those, CDC and the COVID, you want to go to the World Health Organization and also the CDC, because you know that's coming from the doctor that the president has. That's there, that's going to give it accurate. If you're looking for your local news, that's the thing that's going to be dealing with your area. Then, you know, if you got 2 or 3 local news stations, you have to choose which one you want to listen to. But make sure, if you're catching it from the CDC or from the World Health Organization, that they're all going to be coinciding and they're going to be saying the same thing. That's what you listen for. So you have to make sure too that if you're going to get accurate, valid, factual information, you are going to the sources that are reliable during this time, and that is the World Health Organization and the CDC. Okay.
Yeah. And I think, you know, a lot of it now is you have to also trust your instincts that, you know, whomever you are utilizing as an expert is providing you with the best information that you can get at the time. Yeah. Right.
And minimize your information coming from your friends, coming from your family, because that's another big one. In my first one, I talked about sensationalizing. So you got to be careful with getting that scuttlebutt, as we say in the military, getting that conversation from folks, because you got to be careful with what they're saying, because, you know, sometimes people add a little bit more in it because they're sensationalizing it. So that's another source you have to evaluate, and you got to think about who's giving it to you, and is what they're saying valid, especially if it's coming from friends or family. So you got to think in those terms too.
Right. Great point, Tracy. All right. Well, I don't really see any other questions in the chat. This has been a great session, Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
With Baycare, each one gets better and better, Tracy.
Thank you.
It does. It's building and building, and great reminders of
Yes.
things to do and how to just help to keep ourselves as healthy mentally as we're trying to keep ourselves physically. So
yes.
Thank you. All right, everybody. This recording and Tracy's PowerPoint, we will have that posted this afternoon on our AFC website. Eileen has just put the link in the chat for you. So again, I say thank you all for joining us. We appreciate your time. Please stay safe, stay healthy, take care of your families. And
see everybody next week.
Yeah, we'll do it again next week.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
All right, you too. Thank you. Bye-bye.